So today we're going to be taking a look at a scenario where civilization starts over. In the last episode we saw a few events happen, like these two countries come back, getting independence from Albania, who's also quite unstable at the minute. The Ukraine had a civil war, and a couple of other things which I really cannot remember at the minute because I can't be asked. So yeah, let's just jump straight into it because I can't be asked. We're going to be starting off down in Nigeria because something very interesting is going to be happening here. So Nigeria, as you can see on the ideology layer, if I can find it, they are a dictatorship. However, something very interesting has just happened, and that's the fact that Egypt has just sent an assassin down to Nigeria, and he's going right here to the capital, and he kills the leader of Nigeria, before then going into the Sahara country where he's then thrown back to Egypt. And maybe you're asking, why would he do this? Well, Egypt has kind of been meddling with the sort of politics of this country, and the guy who was second in command is actually a communist. He was placed there by Egypt, and the dictator kind of liked him, but he didn't really know what his views were, so he was disguised in. But once he takes power from the dictator, they will turn into a communist nation. And straight away we see Nigeria join into the Parallelogram Alliance because they are very loyal towards Egypt. So the Nigerians will join in this alliance, and the first thing of order that they will do is actually going to be to invade Chad. Chad is an extremely neutral nation who hasn't done anything to deserve this, but they're just going to get invaded because Nigeria is a very mean country now. So they're going to get pretty much thrown around by Nigeria in these southern areas, which are probably where the most people live. Obviously the most people live in the capital, but if you cut the country in two, the south definitely has more population than the north due to it being a lot more fertile. They'll kind of come around this river and push up to that, and then cross the river and send the navy up to encircle this area. And they're not really using a navy, it's just boats, but they'll completely encircle this area and push over towards where this river is, just like that. However, there will be a country coming to save the day because, well, it's a very common theme in the Cold War. These guys are democracy. As the Dark Red Union will declare war on Nigeria, and you may be saying, wait, isn't this gonna start a war between the Parallelograms and the Dark Red Union? Well, no, not really, because the Parallelogram Alliance, it doesn't really work as a military alliance. They won't defend you if you get attacked. So Nigeria's gonna have to fight this on their own. And yeah, Egypt is definitely supporting them still, but they're just not getting helped out. So the Dark Red Union is going to invade into this Nigerian country, and yeah, they're going to do extremely well. They'll make a landing in this southern tip area right here, and they'll come along just like this and pretty much cut the country off the coast. And they'll start just, battering Nigeria. Nigeria isn't a really strong country. They are a strong country in Africa, but they're not necessarily a strong, like I said, they're not the strongest country in the world, unlike the Dark Red Union, who is. However, we will see the Chad country manage to push back as well in this area, just like this, and yeah, they'll do quite well against the Nigerians. However, there's a country that doesn't like the Dark Red Union. That's obviously Sweden. And what's going to happen is, if I actually show you the water layer, you'll be able to see something that I haven't revealed yet. Sweden does own this island down here in the southern Atlantic. They used to have this colony here, obviously, but then they gained this land, and well, they always had this island. So yeah, they're just gonna. I'll add a little dot to show it. But the Swedish are going to do something that the Dark Red Union is going to really not like, and that's move a lot of their navy down to this region. And what they're going to do is basically form a massive wall around the Nigerian area and stop any Dark Red Union supplies from coming through, and they're basically kind of trying to starve out this area. And the Dark Red Union is like, what are you doing? And they are not able to pass through this area as it's being defended by the Swedish, and the Dark Red Union is going to be like, right, this is a complete, just terrible thing, this is an act of war. And Sweden's going to be like, whoa, this is not an act of war, we just don't want you to influence any more countries down in Africa to turn into a democracy. And this is going to start what is known as the Nigerian crisis. So, and in the end, what we see is a peace deal in Nigeria, quite soon on. I mean, it's not going to last very long. What's basically going to mean is Sweden has to withdraw their troops back to this area. We see the Nigerians getting this, basically just not gaining any land, but they also don't lose any land, and they'll stay in the Parallelogram Alliance, and it's basically just a white peace. However, the tension between the Dark Red Union and Sweden won't go away. It'll carry on for the oncoming weeks, as the kind of seawater here is very heavily militarised by both of the countries. Also, another thing to note, this was signed on the 27th of June. This peace deal was signed on the 27th of June in 1967, and this is going to go on for a few weeks. However, 2 weeks later, on the 4th of July, we see something really, really, really bad happen. That is, a Dark Red Union, submarines, which these are actually the first nuclear submarines. Dark Red Union has officially invented the nuclear submarine now. But 8 of the first nuclear submarines will cross into Swedish territory accidentally. They cross around this sort of area right here. They just like this. And these Dark Junior submarines, yeah, they cross into Swedish territory, and Sweden is going to basically use anti-navy things that aren't actually harmful to try and get these guys out of their waters. And these Dark Red Union, or one of these Dark Red Union submarines, is going to believe that there's been a war that's begun between Sweden and the Dark Red Union at this point, and they'll basically have 3 generals on the ship. 2 of the generals will say, okay, right, we need to launch a nuclear missile into Swedish territory to stop these guys from, or stop this war and defend our sovereignty. However, one of these guys, this guy's name is Dominic Ichten, this guy says, no, we won't launch nukes into Swedish territory since we aren't 100% sure what's happened yet. And eventually, a few hours later, they will realise that this was non-harmful, and they'll just simply retreat into the Dutch or French areas. And yeah, and about a week later, we see a ceremony held in the Dutch capital, thanking Dominic because he is technically the man who saved the world. And the Dark Red Union and Sweden crisis will kind of just cool down at this point, and eventually we won't really have a conclusion. The 2 countries will basically just say, okay, we're not going to have like militarized borders anymore, and yeah, we're just going to leave each other alone for a bit. So that was a very close crisis. That was very close to a nuclear war, which would have definitely really badly harmed the world. So yeah, you could definitely thank Dominic for saving this world. So anyway, moving away from this, we're going to go to somewhere else in the world. Anyway, now we're going to move up to the Mediterranean Sea, as unfortunately an extremely old country, a country that has existed since episode 9, I think it was, is going to finally die. As we have Sicilian troops invading into Maltese water, or Sicilian Navy invading into Maltese water, quickly crossing the naval border. They'll quickly gain naval dominance across the entire island, and eventually the story of the Maltese neutral nation down here will officially end, and Sicily will take it over. In this peace deal, Malta will be fully annexed, and they are no longer a country. World reaction to this is actually really bad. A lot of the countries in the world are like having many sanctions on Sicily, such as the Italians. We have all the Square Lines basically. A lot of the Mediterranean nations, such as the Red Team, Carthage as well, Morocco, other countries as well around the world are sanctioning the Sicilians because this is a really ancient country. Like, why would you do that? And Sicily is going to get a lot of bad rep for this, but I mean, do they really care? They're a communist nation, they'll do whatever they want. Anyway, now we're going to move down to the Indian subcontinent, as we're going to see a much nicer event happen. That is going to be a union. Sri Lanka is a very old country, just like Malta. However, they're not going to be like forcibly being integrated into a country. Instead, they are simply going to join up with the Indian country because they're a lot stronger than them, and I guess you could say the Third Indian Empire has begun. Although it's not an empire anymore; it's more of a republic by this point. So yeah, the Sri Lankans have joined India now, and yeah, the Indian country is thriving. They are, like I said in my last video, a top 10 power, and they'll continue being a top 10 power for the next while, I guess. Anyway, we're going to be moving to the alliance layer once again, I think, in this video, and that's because a few countries are going to finally be joining the AEU. This has been taking place over the last 2 episodes, so they haven't obviously all joined in at once, but we have the North Indian country joining in on this alliance. We see a very interesting one, as Persia will be joining in on this alliance. I have to make their trapezoid a bit lighter because they're just base green. We have the Sakhalin country joining in on the alliance. Hokkaido will also join in. We have this country up here who I think they would have been forced to join in actually because they were fascist nation formerly that would like kind of taken over. We also have these 2 countries that were formerly fascist joining in over here. And yeah, that's going to happen. As well as the very old neutral kind of purple country over here in Central Asia. They have not done anything. I used to call them Riff-Off Caspian. I think that's a really funny name. We also have countries such as the Philippines joining in on the alliance. We also have North Borneo will be joining in. And a very interesting one down here, we have the Northern Australian country joining in, despite of the fact that they're not even a Asian country, but they will be joining on the alliance nonetheless. And that's because, well, they pretty much are Asian. They were colonized by Japan. They have an Asian population, all that, you know. They are very Asian themselves, so yeah, they'll be joining in. And finally, we have this Papua New Guinea country over here joining in on the alliance, and officially, the AU is now huge. So yeah, definitely keeping an eye out for the AU in the next episodes, as it could be doing something quite cool. Now we come down to Central Africa, as we're actually going to be seeing a military alliance be formed. And that's all these countries over here, or all these Middle African countries are going to be joining an alliance. And I'll show you who it is now, to kind of protect themselves from, you know, communism. There's like other things as well, like this economic alliance could definitely do something soon. So we'll simply be seeing a new alliance be created. And we have the GEA African Alliance be created, with this green country being the first to publicly announce it. We then have the pink country joining in. A weird one is going to be the orange country. Anyway, say, well, aren't they already in the Dark Red Unions Alliance? Well, yeah, and they can also be in another alliance as well if they so choose. So they'll be deciding to join in on the Gear Alliance. And the pretty cool thing about this alliance, it's not really like anything to do with ideology. Even the dictatorship has joined in, which the other two are democracies, and that's because these guys, they really don't care. They honestly could be considered a democracy at this point, and actually I'm going to make that official. I say there's a coup in the government and they turn into a democracy, and that's why they join the alliance. So yeah, pretty cool thing over here in Africa. Quick note as well, I'm changing the Circle Economical Alliance to be, or to Triangle Economical Alliance to be a circle, because I just realised there's already a Triangle Alliance up here in Anatolia, so, well, we're just going to keep that because that's a lot more important than this one down here in Africa. But anyway, keeping on the subject of economical alliances, we're going to see one be formed down in South America. It's going to be started by this Uruguay country. We then have this Patagonian nation down here joining the alliance. And then, well, Chile will be joining the alliance as well. This is the South American Economical Pact to kind of deflect away from this dictatorship right triangle alliance that was formed in the last episode. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Anyway, down here now, we see that this Wisconsin country is starting to be really terrorized by the Californian cartel. They're starting to do a lot of political assassinations in this country and really starting to just harm the entire political structure and make this country a lot more unstable. Like, they're even going to dip down from a yellow stability down to a orange stability. Or yellow, they're going to dip down from a lime one to a yellow, sorry. And what's basically going to happen is these guys are going to be like, right, we don't really want this anymore, so, oh yeah, you're not going to mess with us now, are you? The Wisconsin country will be joining the Canadian Union, and now the cartel is going to be like, oh bro, yeah, we're definitely not going to do anything more in this country. And they'll basically stay away now. And another thing I want to say about the Canadian Union is they still, like, they give limited sovereignty to the nations that decide to join them. Like, they still have minimal kind of sovereignty. It's kind of like how the US works with the states and stuff. They have their own elections, their own, like, governors and stuff, and it's pretty much exactly what happens here. But California is going to be really annoyed by this. And, well, why are they annoyed? Well, why do I know? What they're going to do is they're going to be adding the Californians into the economical alliance. So yeah, that's pretty cool, I guess. Anyway, we then see the Caspian country and this grey Central Asian country get into a war, and it's over a really stupid reason. Basically, well, yeah, this country turned into a dictatorship, just like every single Central Asian country. And the dictator of this country basically insulted Caspia, and they're going to be like, huh, wow, you're not going to insult us anymore, are you? Ha ha ha! The Caspians will invade into the grey country and utterly smack that ass around, and yeah, they're going to basically just destroy this country. They'll move in and they'll grab this capital right here. Oh no, the city right here. And then move in and grab the capital just like that. And this country's dictator will be basically brought back to the Caspian capital, and he'll have some tomatoes thrown at his head, and then yeah, the country's going to surrender. So yeah, that's what's going to happen in this country. They completely just get neutered. Anyway, the peace treaty is just going to be this. Yeah, they get like half their land taken away from them. And just to kind of rub it in even more, the Caspian country will, or the leader of or the king of the Caspian country will give his brother the throne in this grey country, which is kind of like an old medieval tradition, but like we're in the modern day now, and they're doing this. I turned it into a monarchy, and yeah, the Dark Regime's like, this is a bit strange, we don't really care, but like, that's strange. Anyway, coming over to Albania, they are going to be having another breakaway, just like in the last episode. And that's going to be the Bosnian country. They all will return, and they're not going to look exactly like this because these borders don't look great with Albania. But they'll be getting a little bit of an upgrade from what their former selves were, as they'll be taking over all three of these big provinces over here, and just really be enlarged. And yeah, Albania, they are not in a good position at the minute. They are very ungood. But for the final event of today's video now, we're going to see a one that's going to change the world, you could say. As on the 2nd of February 1969, we have the entrance of Germany into the Square Alliance. This is going to really annoy Sweden, because I mean, we fought a whole war against these guys, and now you're adding them to your alliance. What are you doing? And Sweden is now going to start to well, you know that crisis that happened earlier. They're going to start to, well, insult the leaders of the Dark Red Union, and yeah. There's a lot more tension now again. Like, we just had the tension end earlier in this video, and now it's back already. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. In the next two episodes, we're going to see a lot more events happen. If you guys have enjoyed it, because in the next two episodes, we may be seeing the end of the Cold War. But you'll just have to wait and see if that happens. Anyway, thank you guys for watching today's video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.